Hank, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Just got back from the beach for the last 6 days, so getting back into the
Oh,
yeah.
v- very nice. Now, which beach? Can you tell us that? Where did
We
you make the
we,
trip?
we went down to Orange Beach. My sister-in-law graduated from nursing school in Pensacola, so the whole family got a condo on Orange Beach and hung out for the last few days. It was fun.
White sand beaches
Oh yeah.
of the Gulf Coast down there. Yeah, very proud of those. We are. Now that you're back, Hank, you walk right into. It seems like never-ending breaking news involving Alabama recruiting, and what we really wanted to have you talk about with us today: this situation involving a former five-star rated inside linebacker by 247sports.com. Alabama initially very involved in the recruitment of Brandon Cahoe out of Reno, Nevada. He ultimately signed with Washington. Very short stay in Seattle, has his unconditional release. Where does it sit right now with Brandon Cahoe?
Yeah, it's one of those things. And I think it's interesting. It's kind of funny with the situation too. I think a lot of people weren't sure who he was because he now goes by Ale Keho. And so I think a bunch of people were like, "Who is this guy?" But Brandon Cahoe was a big target for Alabama in the 2018 cycle. Obviously, we saw that class finish last February, losing Quay Walker to Georgia, and then of course parting ways with Vernon Jackson, and he ultimately signed with Texas A&M. So the only true inside linebacker they signed was Jalen Moody, and so certainly left a gap as far as need, and obviously with this season coming up with just kind of Mac Wilson and Dylan Moses, the only guys with a lot of experience there. Certainly needed more guys, and as you said, Washington gave Brandon Cahoe his release, and Bama got back involved with him. It's looking as of now, and our colleague at 24/7 Sports, Blair Angulo, has covered this really nicely for us. He was on top of it from the beginning. He said Bama would be involved. As of last night, it looks like Bama is probably the team to beat here for whenever he does make a decision, which has to be pretty soon considering obviously they're already in fall camp. The season's coming up quickly, and he certainly has to make plans for his next destination. But, I mean, talk about a massive addition if Bama were to eventually pull this off and get him actually in their 2018 class, because technically this isn't a transfer. Washington released him from his letter of intent. As long as things go as they are expected to, as far as the release and everything, he'd be eligible to play this season. So to have that added to the depth, especially with another linebacker in Terrell Lewis going down, obviously different positions, but to get a little more depth on the defense going into the season would be big.
So there's no doubt that this is a take for Alabama with Brandon Cahoe moving on from Washington.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was considered a take back when they recruited him in all last fall and everything. With all that, I think some were a little surprised. I mean, obviously Washington was a school in the mix for him, so I mean it wasn't out of the blue. But when he did sign with Washington, it was a little bit of a surprise considering there was some confidence on the Alabama side, and it was funny because he was committed to BYU all this time. It was a soft commitment. He was obviously taking official visits. He was talking to other schools. But he ultimately flipped from BYU to Washington instead of BYU to Alabama. So, I mean, he was a big-time target. He had a huge camp performance. I guess it was July of 2017. He came down to Tuscaloosa. They told him, come down, work out for us. We'll offer you if we like what we see. He did just that, and they just kind of took it off. They kind of took off from there as far as recruiting him. So, yeah, he's certainly a guy the staff really likes.
You talk about, Hank, sort of the cramped time frame we're looking at here. Is there? Do you have a feel for when all this could go down? I mean, based on what you said earlier, it could be any time now, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be long before we know something. I could see something happening in the next couple of days. I believe Blair, our West Coast analyst in 24/7, said maybe in the next 24 to 48 hours. So it's certainly a fast-moving situation. And I think we'll know something before the end of this week.